2 years ago, my anxiety was high. I was already at a point in my life where I thought I was a little off, but that was amplified a lot when I kept repeatedly hearing noise outside my window, like every single night. It just wouldn't stop. I'd finally get so freaked out, I'd wake my parents up and get them to look outside, but they never found anything. I started to think I was crazy or just subconsciously seeking attention. One morning, my grandfather discovered one of our lawn chairs beneath my bathroom window. It's pretty high up, and the bottom pane is fogged, so I'm not sure the chair even helped, but it was left there regardless. The next night, I heard sounds again, but saw nothing. The night after, however, we checked outside and discovered something that made my stomach churn. A small stepladder was sitting directly outside of my window. It was back just enough to allow somebody to sit on it, but still see me. On my windowsill was a bag of now cold McDonald's, which is just down the street from me. Most of the food was still in there, but still, some sicko had been watching me, doing absolutely nothing of interest in my room, without me knowing for I don't know how long. The cops were called. Nothing happened. I felt crazier than ever. No one was to be found, but at least we had some evidence that someone that shouldn't be hovering around our house was at my window, watching me intently through the blinds. I heard noises the next night. I ran outside again, and nothing. Early in the night, I'd sewn my curtains together, which hopefully made it harder for them to see in. Apparently it did, because now the sicko had taken into climbing on top of our air conditioning unit, and from there, climbing onto our garage can, standing on that so that he could see above the drapes. Handprints and shoe prints were left on the lid to prove it. I should also mention that there were now holes in my screen, and I heard these holes being created. He took a stick and sharpened it somehow. We found it outside the window, and was trying to stealthily break away the screen bit by bit. The hole was still in there. The next night, I distinctly heard the gravel near my window crunch. There was simply no mistaking the sound. As stealthily as I could, I let out a small moan he surely heard, and rolled out of view, as if I was sleeping. Then, pressed myself against the wall, out of view of the window, very quietly opened the door, and crept down the hall. My heart was pounding. Normally I knock on my parents' door, but I knew the slightest sound would make the bastard bolt, so I quietly opened their door and sneaked in. Then informed them that there was, without a single doubt, someone outside my window. I didn't mind the intrusion and got up, got dressed, formulated a plan, and crept out the back door. I ran to the bathroom to stand on the edge of the tub, and I peeked out the window just as the back door was thrown open and my parents ran outside like maniacs. And sure enough, they saw him. They started screaming as the man leapt off the Herbie and bolted down our driveway, which was what I was looking at. They screamed all sorts of horrible things at the top of their lungs, ringing through the neighborhood. He ended up escaping across the street, hiding behind a house adjacent to us. The balls on this bastard. He kept peeking out at us as we all stood outside, but we wanted to leave him there so the cops could finally nab him. They were called. They came and they searched, but they never found him. Bastard must have hopped fences or some shit. Still, to this day, I hear sounds outside my window, even in the dead of winter, but he's never out there. He might have just been a peeper but targeted me specifically, and for months, until he was almost caught. What really pisses me off is that once he lost interest in me, because he was too unsafe, he moved on to a house down the street with 2 little girls. He actually managed to get into their window, and their dad caught him standing in the middle of the room, watching them sleeping and pleasuring himself. I still don't think he was caught even then. All I know is that it could have been way worse, but it messed me up. I trust the men in my neighborhood even less now. The men around here stare very blatantly. I've been chased home by one. I've had a guy try to push me into his car when I was passing him, even after telling him no, I don't need a drive, and to leave me alone. All these years later, I still hear shit outside my window and freak out. It's really messed up. I turn on my lights entirely to exercise. I do my best to avoid the windows when I undress. It just scarred me. There's this guy I met at the same time I met my current boyfriend. Even met him in the same place. He's about 10 years older and totally not my type. I only talk to him when it's absolutely necessary. Altogether, maybe 2 hours of complete, impersonal and polite, I don't have the guts to tell you to F off conversation. Well, my boyfriend and I started dating, and that other guy blows it. Follows us to a club. I notice, freak out, run into the bathroom with a girlfriend, and then my boyfriend talks to him. The guy starts acting like a 5-year-old, even cries. We leave as soon as we could. About a month later, I find a creepy love letter in my mail. He had delivered it himself. That creep had followed me to my door and found out where I live. Fast forward 1 year, I no longer frequent the places I met him because he basically lives there. Neither does my boyfriend. Apart from a few awkward, unavoidable run-ins in the city, nothing. Until exactly a year after I started dating my boyfriend, I get a card in the mail, delivered himself, asking me out as if nothing happened and as though we were dating. It was a whole year of no contact. I didn't react. We moved, and the summer we did, I started noticing that guy at the mall. First I thought it was a coincidence, but then a shop owner I know tells me that the guy is following me and keeps hiding when I turn around. What the hell? He promises to inform the other owners he knows, and to call mall security next time he sees the creeper. It's been well over 2 years. I don't want to work as a waitress, even though I desperately need the money, because I know he would find me and just sit there all day and night, watching me. I don't want to work anywhere near the place I met him, which is basically anywhere near city center. I don't go to the mall alone anymore. I don't go to certain supermarkets and cafes because I know he frequents them. I don't even know this guy's last name, and he controls where I go and where I am cautious, even where we move. I wish I could leave the city, but I can't. And even if I did, he knows both my first and last name. I only know his first name and what he looks like. He can find me very easily, and it's going to be even easier once I finish university, since I aim for a university teaching position and they display your info on the internet. They have to, for the students. You could come to my open classes or lectures. You could follow me again. I'm scared, and I'm really not sure what to do at this point. My first serious boyfriend stalked me for about 5 years after I broke up with him. The reason I broke up with him is because I noticed him becoming increasingly possessive and controlling. This worried me a lot. I was really young. He was older than me. So I decided to get out. The breakup itself was so brutal. He cried and screamed and begged. Initially after the breakup, his behavior seemed like the harmless actions of a bitter ex. Constant texting and phone calls, sending gifts to my workplace, that sort of thing. But after about 6 months, when this hadn't died down, I started bumping into him on my way home from work, or if I was out shopping, so I ended up moving. I couldn't leave my job immediately, but moving the house didn't make a difference anyway. This behavior continued for a few years. His behavior became increasingly worse. I'd rather not go into it, and the police were very reluctant to do anything. I moved every 6 to 9 months and changed jobs twice, but somehow he always managed to track me down. I didn't use social media, and even insisted friends of mine not take any pictures of me in case they posted them. I kept my phone number within my circle of friends, but somehow he always managed to get my new number. I ended up a paranoid wreck, thinking that one of my friends had betrayed me or that my phone company had listed me in the phone book, and all other kinds of crazy thoughts. Then another year passed, and as our encounters got worse, again. I'd rather not go into detail. I decided to report him to the police again, and this time they took some action. At this stage, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't concentrate at work at all. I was just a shell. About 2 months after I reported him to the police though, I woke up one morning to a story in the newspaper about staff in the National Tax Office using resources improperly. My ex was the main perpetrator, using his job to access all of my information. In his job, he had access to my tax records, which means every time I changed my job, address, or phone number, he had access to the most up-to-date information. Before the court case began, he committed suicide, and I'm not ashamed to say I cried with relief. They were the worst years of my adult life.